You're right, it's Governor Singh 1984, Govlove 84 Aria, Director of OSNST Old Southall, New Southall Town Limited. Now this vlog's going to be a serious vlog and it's going to be about knife crime in the United Kingdom. I think it's terrible. You know, you always see something on Facebook, on the news, where someone's just unprovokedly, randomly been stabbed to death, and they're mainly teenagers, mainly kids. And so I just wanted to do a quick vlog about, you know, possible solutions or tactics to try to decrease this and how to prevent it happening. You know, when I was a teenager, I left school when I was 14. I ended up in a tutorial centre, study centre, and I used to carry a knife as well. And thank God I never used it, but I could have, because I had some very hot-headed moments. So it's not good. I don't think it's good to carry a knife. I don't think it's good to carry even a gun. I don't think it's good for civilians in day-to-day life to carry weapons. I don't think that's good at all. So, you know, what's going on? You know, because I live quite a reclusive, isolated kind of life. I have my family, don't get me wrong. I love to death who help with my mental health recovery so much, but a lot of my private time, my alone time, I spend alone, and I'm boxed in. It's like being in a prison in my bedroom. So whilst I'm in this isolation, a lot's going on outside. A lot is happening outside in this world that's quite dangerous, quite scary. You know, kids are stabbing each other, and it's like, you know, this is my, you know, final conclusion, my thought out conclusion, and basically it's like, after all the tax has been collected through trade, minerals, or companies, whatever you want to call it, tax gets set into budgets, into percentages for each sector. So you have the army, you have transport, you have education, you have the NHS, you have the fire brigade, and you have the police. Now, a lot of people are going to turn around and say, you know, fuck the police. Well, you know, a lot of street people will say fuck the police, you know, fuck giving them money from tax, you know, do away with them. But honestly, any realistic person, or any person with a sound mind will understand that the police as an establishment is a vital sector for any civilized functioning society. And when I was little, I used to be like, fuck the police. I used to listen to Tupac, Machiavelli, and, you know, a lot of anti-police songs, and I was like, fuck the police, fuck the law. And that was my attitude because of my age and what I was experiencing in life at that time. But, you know, now I'm 34 years old and I've shifted from that mentality. So I wouldn't say fuck the police as an establishment, because I'm too much into politics, and just like the army and the NHS and education and all the other sectors, the police is a mandatory sector that has to, you know, for any functioning society. But I would say fuck certain styles of policing. Now, what does fuck certain styles of policing mean? You know, corrupt policing, bribery policing, brutality policing, ego trip policing, and what else? Power trip policing, bribery, and all that sort of shit. I would say fuck certain styles of policing. So the way I've worked it out is, it does fall into classes, a hierarchy. Now you have working class police, you have middle class police, and you have upper class police. Now, when you live in a working class community and it's got a bit of a rough reputation, the neighbourhood you live in, it doesn't make sense to bring upper class police or middle class police to police in working class neighbourhoods, because it's just going to cause conflict. It's just not going to work, because most middle classes and upper classes, not all, when I say this, please, I'm not talking about everyone from the upper classes and middle classes. I'm talking about certain mentalities, certain natures in human nature that belong to these classes. Now, how do middle class children or upper class children behave when they're out in public in the shopping centre and they get told off? They drop to the floor, they start kicking their legs and having a fuss. Mummy, mummy, fuck you mummy, I hate you mummy, you bitch. And so when they're at home, the way they get their way is by having a tantrum. Now, if a working class kid was to try that same sort of tantrum, they'll get licks, they get their ass kicked by their parents or their guardians. Whereas upper class and middle class, they don't really discipline their children physically, but they'll put them on the naughty step. But the way they react when they want something, they'll have a tantrum. So imagine this child in this upper middle class or upper class household. When they get older, they're quite clever, and they put on a police uniform and they have a badge. What do you think their style of policing is going to be? They will kick up a fuss and have a tantrum to get their way. So you could be someone, whether you're from a working class background, middle class, or mainly working class background. So imagine you're working class walking down the street. You could have not committed a single crime. In accordance to the law, you have not broken a single law. But just because the upper middle class and the upper class police does not like you, just because they don't like the way you look, the way you speak, just because they've got something against you, they'll kick up a fuss and have a tantrum just to get their own way, and it mainly ends up with young kids being in prison. So just because someone had a tantrum, someone's been put behind bars. Now that's not on. Fuck that style of policing, fuck that style of judging, fuck that style of fucking advocacy and the lawyers, fuck that tantrum style of fucking doing business or conducting yourself in life. Because it might be suitable to have a tantrum in your own home, in your own environment, to get your own way with your parents, but you can't do that out in public and think I'm going to get my way by having a tantrum in public to get my own way. If I was a police officer, I'm going to drop to the floor, kick my legs and start swearing and screaming until I get my own way, just because you don't like someone. You know, that's not on. So there's certain styles to policing. And so just compare how, so imagine you got working class police and we catch a group of boys and they've got knives on, or say one of them's got a knife. Now, if a middle class or upper class police officer was to observe the situation, they'll be like, nope, he's broken the law. That's 5 years mandatory, put him behind bars. And someone who's from the working class upbringing will be like, you know what? I'm just relieved no one's got killed. No one's got killed. Look on the bright side, no one's got killed. We've caught this 14-year-old with a Rambo with a butcher's knife, but luckily we've caught him in time. No one's got killed. So you got to ask the kid the questions. You're like, is there a threat to your life? Has any of your friends been stabbed and you feel that there's a threat? If they can kill your friend, then they can come after you. Because if that's the case, I don't think they should be sentenced to 5 years. I think we'll take the knife off of you, but you need to tell us as your big brother who it is who's after you or who could be coming after you, and we'll go and have a word with them and get them to get off your case and even get a court order injunction for them to stay away from you. But you got to tell us who it's with. So if it's a case that the kid goes, yeah, my friend got stabbed the other day and he died and I'm just scared and I think they're going to come after me, then I don't think for them reaching for a weapon out of fear of their own life that they should be sentenced to 5 years. I think we need to take it off them and go and see to the people, the person that's threatening this person and making them feel fearful. Now, if it's a case of the kid says, no, there's no problem, I don't have beef with anyone, I just want it for protection. And it's like, well, you know, or they say, what you should ask them is, are you doing it just to act bad? Because if you're doing it to act bad as a kid, because they're not fucking big adults, these are kids we're talking about, and you want to put them away for 5 years for carrying a dagger when no one's been killed, you've got to look at it as a big brother from a working class community and say, you know what, for acting bad, you just need to get that off you, take that knife off you and give them a slap and say, get your ass to your fucking room, get home right now, house arrest. Because the way I've concluded it is, you know, I don't think a kid should be put in jail for 5 years for carrying a knife if no one's been killed. There's the concern and the worry and the paranoia that he could go on to kill someone. So the way you need to do it is like this. Say if I was a working class police officer and I found a kid with, I stopped and searched someone and found a knife, I'm going to ask him, is there a threat to your life? Has someone been killed? Is someone after you? If he says no, then it'll be like, are you doing it to act bad? Are you just doing it to show off so no one fucks with you, so you have a reputation around the local neighbourhood as someone who's got a dagger on him? If he says yes, well, I'll take it off you, and I'm taking sentencing off the table. There's no sentencing being considered here. I'm just relieved no one's got killed. So we remove sentencing off the table. Just get to your house, note it down, don't do it again. I'm just relieved no one's got killed. Now, if the same kid gets caught with the same dagger or another meat cleaver, again, this is where you say you slapped me on the hand. I put my neck on the line for you, and you went and fucking just threw it in my fucking face. I'm not going to handle you anymore. I'm going to handle this. I'm going to pass you onto these middle class and upper class police, and you know what they're going to do? They're going to put sentencing on the table. They're going to put sentencing back on the table, and they're going to try and push for you to get 5 years just for carrying it. So do you really think you want to throw it in the face of someone who's just concerned, who's not fucking up your money in regards to your cash in hand economy or your cash in hand business without the paperwork, who's not fucking any of that up? It's simply saying, as a resident, as a big brother, I don't want to see parents crying because their young kid got stabbed in the street. I don't want to see people get heartbroken because of unprovoked, just showing off, just a bit of bravado and courage, trying to frighten people and ruining people's lives. So does that make someone like me, as a resident of a volatile town like Southwold Town, a bad person? Or does it make me someone who's a considerate, responsible person? I don't want to see people get hurt. I want people to get home safely. So that's the way basically I've concluded it. This is 12 minutes long. I'm going to finish it soon, but I'll just do a quick summary. A working class neighbourhood needs working class police, because when the working class police, who also grew up in poverty, who also came from a background where they had alcoholic or drug dependent parents, or grew up in financial distress or financial crisis growing up, who's just walking around their home, walking around their manor and saying, I've just got one priority right now. I don't want to see any of these kids pulling out knives, stabbing each other over dumb shit. Now people say, oh no, fuck the police. Like I said, fuck certain styles of policing. No one's telling you that you have to accept racist policing, brutality policing, bribery policing, corrupt policing. But a working class police officer is like your big brother in your neighbourhood, who just wants people to get home safely, doesn't want to see people get hurt, and then that's not a bad thing. And I guarantee you this one thing, you know the mafia. I'm not a mafia, I'm an author, I'm just a writer. I write about all these gangsters and all these hood problems and all this politics. I'm just an author, I'm a writer. I guarantee you the mafia are concerned about knife crime. Because when the mafia have beef, the first thing they do is they talk. And they don't talk by themselves, they talk with a mediator. And the reason when there's two conflicting parties, you talk with a mediator, because you don't want to see anyone get hurt. You don't want it to come to that. But if it comes to that, then the people will start gossiping around the neighbourhood, and they'll determine that the person who may or got killed, did they deserve it or not. Even if the society says it's murder, or the court say it's murder because there's no abolition of the death penalty, it's murder. Amongst circuits and amongst families, people will decide the case, like sitting in a village in Punjab, and decide did the person deserve it or not. But the purpose is to have a conversation and dialogue while a mediator is present. And I guarantee the mafia are so fucking saddened by these young kids just standing there in public and stabbing each other and people's lives getting destroyed. And I guarantee the mafia will, it's like this, yeah? In a place like Southall, when it comes to police, it depends what it is before you get cooperation or not. Depending on what it is, depends on whether you'll get cooperation or not. And I guarantee there's a lot of things the mafia will cooperate with, but there's some things in regards to tax evasion that they won't cooperate with. And this tax evasion is such a small level compared to the big corporation tax evasion that no one does fuck all about. What these capitalists are evading from the public money. people don't do anything about those wankers. The corporate police don't do anything regarding those fucking pricks. But when you have a local neighborhood, you need some sort of mafia who can keep these children in line and have them under manners. And if you keep on locking them up because they're evading tax on such a small scale, then it's going to leave the streets to be vulnerable for all these hot-headed and these wrong role models who will teach them bad examples of how to deal with conflict and beef and do stupid things that can not only destroy their lives but other people's lives and other people's families' lives. So that's it, really. Because I really believe the mafia would stand on the street corner and say, I don't want to see no kids getting stabbed around here. Do you understand? That's how I feel about it. Well, that's how I feel the mafia will probably feel about it. So yeah, because I'm sure there's some things that the mafia just don't want to go on around here. There's some shit the mafia just won't put up with.